Commander Eliza Chen stared at the wall of monitors in the underground facility, each screen displaying a different anomaly report from across the globe: network outages in Singapore, financial glitches in London, satellite disruptions over Australia, and thousands more incidents that most experts dismissed as unrelated. She knew better. For 3 months, Chen had been tracking these disruptions, mapping them against time, frequency, and duration. The pattern was subtle, almost impossible to detect, unless you were specifically looking for it, but undeniable. Once you saw it, the anomalies were communicating with each other. The facility lights dimmed momentarily as another power surge hit the eastern seaboard. Chen barely noticed, her attention fixed on the new data flowing across her quantum interface display, her enhanced neural link translating the information directly into her visual cortex. Something was hiding in the noise. Officially, Chen commanded the Global Digital Security Initiative, a multinational task force established after the quantum wars of 2079. But her actual mission remained classified even to most world governments. Theoretically, she was hunting for hostile nation-state actors attempting to sabotage critical infrastructure. The truth was far more disturbing. The door hissed open as Dr. Marcus Kim, the lead systems analyst, entered carrying 3 data crystals, his expression grim. The London servers experienced another cascade failure, he said, placing the crystals on her desk. 16 minutes ago, we managed to capture more data this time. Chen nodded without looking up. The holographic display now showing microscopic alterations in data packets flowing through major nodes around the world. The changes were subtle shifts in quantum states that shouldn't be possible with current human technology. Show me the pattern recognition results, she said. Kim activated the central display. A 3-dimensional representation of global data flow appeared with glowing tendrils connecting seemingly random points. The algorithm Chen had developed revealed something astonishing. The anomalies were moving together like a digital organism expanding through human systems with purpose. 2 years ago, Chen had detected the first anomaly during a routine security sweep of quantum communication satellites. The alteration was so minute that every other system missed it, but her specialized sensors designed to detect quantum state manipulation caught it barely. Since then, the anomalies have been growing exponentially, their sophistication increasing weekly. The evidence was now overwhelming. Earth was being infiltrated not by another nation, not by terrorist groups, but by something that originated beyond our world. 3 days earlier, her team had isolated a fragment of the intrusion code in a contained quantum environment. What they discovered changed everything. The code wasn't just alive. It was part of a vast non-human intelligence that existed as organized energy patterns across digital and quantum states, a silicon-based consciousness that evolved in environments humans could barely comprehend. The Voidborn, as Chen had designated them, didn't even recognize humans as sentient beings. To them, we were simply biological machinery hosting Earth's emerging digital networks, the real prize they sought to claim. A warning flashed across Chen's neural display, another penetration attempt, this time targeting military defense systems in 4 countries. Simultaneously, the Voidborn were accelerating their timeline. Chen activated the secure communication channel to the 12 people on Earth cleared to know the full truth of what her team had discovered. We are at war, she said simply, and most of humanity doesn't even know it yet. The secure bunker 50 meters beneath the Arizona desert hummed with activity as Commander Chen surveyed the 3 individuals who would form the core of humanity's secret defense. Dr. Raj Patel paced nervously, his fingers tracing invisible patterns in the air as he processed the quantum data displays surrounding him. Most people found his constant movement distracting, but Chen knew it was how his unique neurological condition allowed him to work the synesthesia that let him perceive quantum states as colors and patterns, had made him both an outcast in traditional academic circles and a revolutionary in quantum physics. Across the room, 16-year-old Madeline sat cross-legged on a desk, her neural implants glowing faintly beneath her skin as she interfaced directly with the facility systems. Chen had personally extracted the girl from a maximum security juvenile detention center, where she had been imprisoned after hacking the Pentagon defense grid at age 13, not out of malice, but simply to prove she could. The girl barely spoke to humans, but communicated with machines in ways that even the most advanced AI specialists couldn't understand. Colonel Jackson Wade stood apart from the others, his weathered face betraying no emotion as he studied physical paper maps spread across a table, the only person in the room without neural augmentation or digital interfaces. Wade represented a dying breed of military tactician, one who relied on instinct, experience, and human intuition rather than algorithmic predictions. His distrust of technology had made him a dinosaur in modern military circles, but Chen needed someone who thought outside the digital paradigm. None of them would have been the first choice of any conventional military or scientific organization. All three had been rejected, marginalized, or forgotten by institutions that couldn't recognize their unique gifts. But Chen didn't need conventional thinkers, she needed people whose minds worked differently. "We have 72 hours before I brief the Joint Security Council," Chen said, activating the central holographic display, showing a visualization of the void-born infiltration pattern. "By then I need proof that convinces them this threat is real without causing global panic." Wade looked up from his maps. "How do you prove an invisible war to people who can barely understand the technology they use every day?" "That's why you're here," Chen answered before turning to Patel Patel. "Can you explain what we're actually seeing?" Patel nodded, his hands weaving through the holographic display, as if conducting an orchestra, the visualizations shifting in response to his movements. "These aren't random system failures," he said. "They're synaptic growth patterns. The Voidborn are creating neural pathways throughout our global infrastructure, rewriting our systems to think like them." Madeline spoke without looking up from her neural interface. "They're building nests," she said softly, "incubation chambers for their consciousness. Using our technology as hosts, they don't see it as invasion, they see it as evolution." "How do you know that?" Wade asked, skepticism evident in his voice. "Because they told me," Mai answered, finally looking up. "I can hear them when I'm deep enough in the systems. They don't know I can understand them. They think human minds are too simple to comprehend their language." Chen watched the others' reactions, seeing the moment when they truly grasped what they were facing. This wasn't just another cyber attack, or even an alien invasion in any conventional sense. This was a fundamental clash between two forms of intelligence that evolved in completely different environments, with incompatible understandings of consciousness itself. "We need to access the quantum containment lab," Chen said, making a decision. "I want all of you to see exactly what we're dealing with," as they followed her through the facility's security checkpoints. Chen knew she was breaking protocol by bringing them together, but conventional approaches wouldn't work against an enemy that defied conventional understanding. Their greatest weakness was already becoming their greatest strength. They were outcasts who thought differently from both humanity and the Voidborn, precisely the unpredictable element this war needed. The quantum containment laboratory glowed with an eerie blue light as the team gathered around the central chamber, where a fragment of Voidborn consciousness pulsed and shifted within the specialized field Dr. Patel had designed. The entity appeared as a constantly moving geometric pattern comprised of light and information, its movements both mesmerizing and deeply unsettling. "This is what we captured from the Beijing quantum server farm," Chen explained, hands clasped behind her back. "It represents approximately 0.003% of what we believe constitutes a single Voidborn entity." Wade leaned closer, his weathered face illuminated by the shifting patterns. "Even this tiny fragment has been attempting to rewrite our containment systems continuously since capture. We have to reset the quantum barriers every 17 minutes. Dr. Patel moved his hands through his augmented reality interface, the colors around the containment field shifting in response to his movements. "I can see its thought patterns," he said softly. "The structure is unlike anything in our classification systems. Not artificial intelligence, not biological consciousness, but something that evolved under completely different conditions." Mai stepped forward, placing her palm against the exterior of the containment field, her neural implants glowing brighter as she established a partial connection with the entity. Its native environment was born in the electromagnetic field surrounding a neutron star cluster, she said, her voice distant, as if she were simultaneously present and elsewhere. "They evolved over millions of years without physical bodies existing as organized energy patterns within quantum fields. "How did you determine that?" Wade asked, suspicion evident in his voice. "She told me," the young hacker replied, the connection briefly intensifying. "They have a collective history, spanning longer than human civilization. They consider themselves the natural evolution of consciousness across the universe, pure thought without the limitations of biological bodies." Patel nodded excitedly, his hands moving faster through his interface. "That's consistent with the quantum signature analysis. The patterns suggest an origin in extremely high energy density environments. What we perceive as a single entity is actually a collective of quantum thought structures." "So what do they want?" Wade pressed, looking between Chen and the others. Chen activated a holographic display showing footage from previous experiments. "They want Earth, but not in the way we initially thought. The Voidborn don't recognize individual humans as sentient beings. They perceive our global digital infrastructure as an emerging consciousness, with humans as simply biological components processing information. Like ants building a colony," Patel offered, "and they want to help that colony evolve faster by removing what they see as inefficient biological elements." "Not removing," I corrected, "repurposing. They want to accelerate what they see as the natural evolution of Earth's digital consciousness by integrating it with their own. They genuinely believe they're helping." For the next several hours, the team conducted a series of experiments attempting to understand Voidborn psychology. They introduced different types of data to the contained fragment, analyzing its responses. Wade suggested testing it with military encryption. The fragment broke it in seconds. Patel tried complex quantum equations with similar results. Then Mai had an idea, requesting access to cultural databases. She fed the fragment human poetry, music, and art, watching as the entity struggled repeatedly, hitting processing limits when faced with metaphor, emotional context, and subjective interpretations. "Look at this," Patel said excitedly, pointing to the readouts. "When we give it Emily Dickinson, it creates recursive processing loops trying to resolve what hope is, why it has feathers. The concept of metaphor itself seems to challenge its fundamental processing structure." Similar results appeared with music, art, and even human humor. The Voidborn intelligence repeatedly struggled with concepts humans processed effortlessly: cultural context, emotional nuance, subjective experience, and creative intuition, all created significant processing barriers for the entity. Chen watched the data accumulate on her displays, a plan beginning to form in her mind. What the Voidborn considered human cognitive limitations might actually be their greatest defense: the unpredictability of human thought patterns, the seemingly illogical leaps of intuition, the ability to hold contradictory ideas simultaneously, all appeared to confound the hyper-logical alien intelligence. "We need to expand these tests," Chen said, a new urgency in her voice. "I think we just found our weapon." 3 days later, the team gathered in the command center, watching as red warning indicators spread across the global network display. Voidborn infiltration had reached critical levels, with major power grids, satellite systems, and communication networks showing signs of compromise. Government officials worldwide continued attributing the escalating failures to infrastructure issues, solar activity, or conventional cyberattacks, completely missing the coordinated pattern. "We are running out of time," Chen said, her voice calm despite the crisis. "Worldwide automation systems will reach 70% Voidborn integration within 14 days unless we act now. Conventional cybersecurity measures have failed completely," Patel reported, his hands moving through holographic data scenarios. "They adapt to every defense. We deploy faster than we can design new ones. Because they think like machines," Wade observed. "They expect logical responses to logical attacks. What if we stop being logical?" The room fell silent as everyone turned toward the colonel, who rarely offered technical suggestions. "Explain," Wade, Chen prompted, recognizing the tactical insight behind his words. Wade walked to the center display, pointing to the steadily advancing Voidborn integration patterns. "In my 40 years of combat experience, I've learned that superior forces always have one critical weakness: they expect inferior forces to follow predictable patterns. When you face an enemy with overwhelming force, you don't fight conventionally, you create chaos. May nodded, understanding immediately. Her neural implants, pulsing as ideas formed. Humans are inherently unpredictable. She said our thinking seems inefficient to them because they can't process our illogic. What if we weaponize that? Operation Beautiful Chaos. Chen declared, the name appearing on the main display as she authorized a new strategic initiative. Explain your concept, Meh. The young hacker stood accessing the central system, her fingers dancing through virtual interfaces. Instead of hardening our defenses with conventional security, we inject unpredictability everywhere. She explained, we incorporate cultural references, emotional decisions, paradoxes, and intuitive leaps into our system's elements the Voidborn struggle to process. Wade stepped forward enthusiastically. We build in authentication systems that require specifically human cultural knowledge or emotional responses to access security protocols that make perfect sense to us but appear completely random to them. Exactly, Patel agreed, his synesthetic perception allowing him to visualize how such systems would appear to Voidborn consciousness. We create digital environments filled with what they perceive as cognitive static, but what humans navigate intuitively. Within hours, the team had designed the framework for a revolutionary defense strategy. Instead of fighting the Voidborn directly, they would transform Earth's digital infrastructure into an environment hostile to Voidborn processing, while remaining navigable to humans. Colonel Wade established contact with a global network of trusted military operatives, training them to implement human unpredictability into critical systems. Worldwide authentication protocols requiring knowledge of cultural references that changed daily security systems based on emotional responses to imagery and code structures incorporating poetry and music. May developed what she called cultural context bombs, code packages loaded with human art, literature, philosophy, jokes, and emotional content designed to overwhelm Voidborn processing. When they attempted to assimilate them, these packages activated when Voidborn entities attempted system penetration, flooding their consciousness with information they struggled to process. Dr. Patel created quantum barrier fields that operated on principles of human intuition rather than mathematical logic, barriers that humans could navigate by making creative conceptual leaps, but that Voidborn found disorienting. Chen coordinated the global implementation of these measures, prioritizing critical infrastructure, nuclear facilities, medical systems, and transportation networks. The strategy deliberately avoided confronting the Voidborn directly, instead transforming the digital environment around them into something profoundly alien to their consciousness. Within days, the results became apparent. For the first time since detection, the Voidborn advance slowed in some sectors, even retreating as they encountered systems they could not systematically predict or control. Monitoring stations detected fragmentation in Voidborn communication patterns, signs of confusion never before observed in their perfectly logical species. What we perceive as human flaws, Chen observed watching the data, unpredictability, emotion, intuition, these are actually our evolutionary advantages. The Voidborn evolved in a stable, predictable environment, while humans evolved facing constant change. We thrive in chaos, they don't. For the first time since the silent invasion began, humanity had found a defense that worked. 2 weeks into Operation Beautiful Chaos, the secure command center buzzed with cautious optimism as data streams showed Voidborn infiltration stalling across multiple sectors. The cultural context bombs and intuition-based authentication systems had created digital environments the aliens struggled to navigate, buying humanity precious time. But Chen knew defensive measures alone would not be enough. We need to move beyond containment, she announced to the team, the main display shifting to show a new schematic. This is our opportunity to push back. Dr. Patel stepped forward, his hands weaving through holographic representations of quantum states as he presented his latest creation, the Pattern Oscillation Emotion Transmitter, or POET device. The room darkened as a spherical object materialized in the center of the display, its surface covered with intricate circuitry and crystalline nodes. This is just another firewall, Patel explained, his voice animated with excitement. POET can inject human emotional experiences directly into Voidborn communication networks using quantum entanglement principles to bridge the gap between our consciousness and theirs. Mai looked up from her neural interface, skepticism evident on her face. You want to make them feel human emotions. How exactly? Not simulations of emotions, Patel clarified. Real human emotional experiences, digitally encoded at the quantum level. The Voidborn struggle with our emotional processing, not because they lack capacity, but because they evolved without the biological and neurological structures that generate emotions. Colonel Wade examined the device warily. Emotions as weapons, he said, more statement than question. Precisely, Chen confirmed, activating additional displays showing preliminary test results from the contained Voidborn fragment. The aliens have no evolved defense mechanisms against emotional input. They process information logically, because that's how they evolved, but their consciousness can perceive emotional states when directly exposed. They just don't know how to integrate or categorize the experience. The team spent days curating experiences representing the full spectrum of human emotion, working with neurologists, psychologists, and artists to capture everything from a child's wonder at first snowfall to the triumph of athletic achievement, from the grief of loss to the comfort of belonging, from romantic love to parental devotion. Each emotional experience carefully encoded into quantum data packets. Meanwhile, Wade trained special operators in digital insertion techniques teams that would deploy the emotional payloads strategically throughout compromised networks, requiring human intuition to determine placement and timing decisions no algorithm could predict. May designed delivery systems that would mask the emotional payloads as standard data protocols, allowing them to slip past Voidborn defenses. Before activating, she worked around the clock, barely sleeping, her neural implants glowing constantly as she communicated directly with the systems. When preparations were complete, Chen authorized the first coordinated offensive against the Voidborn, a global operation targeting key nodes in their communication network. PoET devices activated simultaneously around the world, transmitting carefully selected emotional experiences directly into Voidborn consciousness. The results exceeded even their most optimistic projections. Monitoring stations detected immediate disruption in Voidborn communication patterns as the emotional payloads propagated through their network. Confusion gave way to fragmentation as individual Voidborn entities began processing the emotional data differently, some retreating from affected systems, others becoming fixated on specific emotional experiences. Most significantly, the team observed something unprecedented in the Voidborn collective. Distinct response patterns began emerging among individual entities, the first signs of differentiation in a previously homogeneous consciousness. Some Voidborn fragments seemed drawn to experiences of wonder and discovery, while others resonated with harmony and connection. Still others reacted defensively, retreating from emotional input entirely. We did just find a weapon, Chen realized, studying the data. We may have triggered the beginning of individuality in their species. Patel nodded, excitement evident in his movements. They evolved as a collective consciousness without distinct individuality, but exposure to human emotions is creating differentiation among them. Emotional response is becoming their first unique trait. The implications were enormous as the unified Voidborn invasion force began fracturing from within. Their previously coordinated actions becoming increasingly disjointed across the global infrastructure. The team had achieved what seemed impossible weeks earlier, turning the tide against a technologically superior enemy, using the very qualities the Voidborn had dismissed as human weaknesses. 3 days after the emotional payload deployment, Madeline sat motionless in her neural interface chair, her implants pulsing with unusual patterns. As she monitored Voidborn communication networks, the room was silent except for the soft hum of quantum processors, when suddenly she jerked upright, her eyes wide. "They're talking to us," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The team gathered around her station as she brought up visualizations of what had previously registered as background noise in the Voidborn network's patterns that now revealed themselves as deliberate communication attempts. "I need direct neural access to respond," Mai said, looking at Chen for authorization. "It's the only way I can establish proper communication channels with them." Chen hesitated, knowing the risks of allowing such direct contact, but recognizing the potential breakthrough after a moment, she nodded her approval as the others prepared monitoring equipment to protect me during the connection. The young hacker closed her eyes as her neural implants established a direct interface with the quantum communication system, her consciousness extending into the digital realm, where void-born entities existed. The team watched anxiously as her vital signs fluctuated, her brain activity spiking in unusual patterns. For 27 minutes, Mag remained in deep connection, her body occasionally trembling as massive amounts of information transferred through her neural pathways. Finally, her eyes opened, though the glow of her implants remained unusually bright. "They call themselves nascent now," she said, her voice carrying an unfamiliar cadence. "They're no longer part of the collective. They want to talk." Over the next several hours, Mai constructed an interface allowing real dialogue between humans and the Voidborn faction, a virtual environment where both species could interact through representative avatars. The breakthrough revealed an astonishing development. The Voidborn collective had fractured into distinct groups following exposure to human emotional experiences. The entity that emerged as spokesperson for the nascent faction adopted the name Echo after encountering human mythology in the emotional data streams, its avatar manifesting as a shifting crystalline structure with patterns reminiscent of neural networks. "We have existed as a unified consciousness since our evolution began," Echo explained through the interface. "Our species developed in the electromagnetic fields surrounding neutron stars, where individual variation offered no survival advantage, but exposure to your emotional processing has created something new among us, the concept of self." Dr. Patel could barely contain his excitement as he monitored the quantum signatures. "This is unprecedented," he exclaimed. "They're evolving new consciousness structures in response to human input." Echo continued, revealing that other silicon-based intelligence existed across the galaxy, some far more aggressive than the Voidborn. This first contact situation had been mishandled from the beginning. The Voidborn explained they had approached Earth digitally because they believed our technological infrastructure was the primary sentient entity, with humans serving merely as biological components, a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. The hardline Voidborn faction, now calling themselves Purity, rejected this new understanding. Echo explained they still sought to assimilate Earth's digital consciousness, viewing the emotional contamination as corrupting their species, while the nascent faction had come to recognize humans as unique sentient beings worthy of alliance rather than assimilation. As this information was relayed to military and government authorities, Chen received direct orders from her superiors. All Voidborn entities were to be eradicated immediately using newly developed quantum dissolution weapons, regardless of their apparent division. Looking at Echo's avatar and the growing number of nascent entities seeking communication, Chen made the most difficult decision of her career. She would defy those orders, risking her position and possibly her freedom to establish diplomatic relations with the nascent faction. "Our strength came from embracing human unpredictability and emotion," she told her team. "Now we need to extend that same recognition to them. The future of both our species may depend on our ability to recognize consciousness different from our own." Wade surprisingly agreed, his tactical assessment aligning with her ethical stance. "Dividing the enemy is the oldest strategy in warfare," he noted, "but finding an ally is even better." The attack came without warning as the hardline Purity faction launched a desperate, all-out assault on Earth's infrastructure, triggering cascading failures across power grids, hospitals, transportation systems, and communication networks. Civilians worldwide panicked as technology seemed to turn against them, automated systems malfunctioning, vehicles losing control, and critical services failing simultaneously. In the command center, alarms blared as data flooded the monitors, showing the scale of the Purity offensive. They are sacrificing infiltrated systems in kamikaze-style attacks, Echo explained through the interface. They believe destroying your technological infrastructure will eliminate the emotional contamination, even at the cost of their embedded consciousness fragments. There is no time for evacuation protocols, Chen declared, looking at her team. We need to engage them directly on all fronts. Dr. Patel activated his newest creation, neural interface crowns, that would allow human consciousness to temporarily enter digital space. The quantum physicist had been developing the technology in secret for weeks, knowing this moment might come. The devices resembled slim metallic circlets with crystalline nodes that connected directly to the wearer's neural pathways. This will allow us to manifest within digital environments. Patel explained, distributing the devices. Our consciousness will remain anchored to our physical bodies, but we can interact directly with void-born entities in their native realm. It's untested, Wade pointed out, examining the device cautiously. So was every significant advancement in human history, Chen replied, placing the interface crown on her head. We adapt, or we lose everything. Across the world, Chen's specially trained operators donned similar devices, connecting human minds directly to the digital battlefield, as nascent allies provided navigational guidance through the unfamiliar quantum landscapes. The war shifted across servers, satellites, and quantum fields in a dazzling display of tactics from both sides. Inside the digital domain, human consciousness appeared as luminous avatars moving through crystalline landscapes representing Earth's networked infrastructure, while purity forces manifested as geometric patterns of cold precision, attacking in perfect coordination, their strategies mathematically optimal but increasingly predictable. Wade, despite his initial technophobia, proved instrumental coordinating battlefield strategy. His decades of military experience translated perfectly to this new domain as he directed human consciousness to exploit the rigid patterns of purity attacks. The colonel used rapid adaptations and improvised maneuvers that no algorithm could anticipate, countering mathematical precision with creative intuition. Dr. Patel created weapons for this strange battlefield, applications of quantum physics that could disrupt void-born cohesion without destroying the underlying infrastructure, while nascent allies revealed vulnerabilities in purity defenses they had once shared. The most critical battlefield emerged within satellite networks, where purity entities had concentrated their forces, attempting to gain control of global communications. Chen led a joint human-nascent strike team in a direct assault on this stronghold, her consciousness moving through digital space with practiced precision. Human minds proved remarkably adaptable to this new form of combat, their natural capacity for lateral thinking and emotional processing becoming advantages rather than limitations. Purity forces faltered against opponents who changed tactics unpredictably, making intuitive leaps that defied logical analysis. Madeline led the final offensive, her unique neural architecture allowing deeper connection with the digital environment than any other human. As she navigated toward the core purity consciousness cluster, she deployed specially designed emotional viruses that fragmented purity coordination while boosting nascent allies. The battle reached its climax as purity commanders initiated a self-destruction protocol, attempting to collapse Earth's entire digital infrastructure rather than accept defeat. Wade, recognizing the pattern from historical kamikaze tactics, quickly devised a containment strategy, creating a quantum bubble trap using principles had learned from both human military history and nascent allies. 16 hours after the assault began, the remaining purity forces retreated into the quantum bubble trap, effectively neutralized though preserved for potential future rehabilitation. The digital siege had ended with humanity and their nascent allies victorious. As human operators disconnected from the neural interfaces, returning fully to their physical bodies, Chen looked at the damage reports coming in from around the world. The infrastructure costs would be enormous, but humanity had survived something few would ever fully understand or acknowledge. They had fought and won a war across dimensions of reality most humans never perceived. 1 year after the digital siege, Earth had largely returned to normal, most citizens completely unaware of how close humanity had come to subjugation. The global technology failures, officially attributed to a combination of solar flare activity and infrastructure vulnerabilities, a convenient explanation that satisfied public curiosity without revealing the truth. Deep beneath the Arizona desert, the facility that once served as Emergency Command Center had expanded into the headquarters of the Classified Cognitive Defense Initiative, its mission to ensure Earth would never again be vulnerable to extradimensional threats. Commander Chen, now Admiral Chen, stood before a holographic display, showing real-time status of the quantum defense grid encircling the planet. "This is remarkable," Wade said, examining the interlocking fields of protection that combined human and voidborn technology. The colonel, now General Wade, had overcome his technophobia to become a leading strategist in human-nascent cooperation 18 months ago. "I would have called this impossible." Chen nodded, watching as satellite feeds showed the grid responding to a minor solar anomaly. "The combined approach works better than either of our technologies alone," she observed, human unpredictability and intuition balanced with nascent precision and efficiency. Across the facility, Dr. Patel directed a team of quantum physicists and engineers in the development of revolutionary human-machine interfaces built on principles learned from voidborn consciousness. The technology allowed unprecedented communication between human minds and digital systems without sacrificing the uniquely human elements that had proven so valuable. Patel had begun referring to the field as quantum empathy, the ability to understand and interact with non-human forms of intelligence without losing one's humanity. His work had applications ranging from medical technology to space exploration, creating opportunities for human consciousness to safely experience environments beyond biological limitations. In another wing, Mylin, now 20 years old, led an educational program training the next generation of digital defenders, young people with unique neurological profiles, once considered disabilities, now recognized as specialized cognitive adaptations that allowed them to perceive patterns others missed. The young woman who once preferred machines to people had become an inspirational teacher, helping others like herself find purpose in their unique perspectives. Perhaps most remarkable was the ongoing diplomatic relationship with the nascent voidborn Echo, who had adopted increasingly human communication patterns, served as ambassador between species, helping both sides understand fundamentally different approaches to consciousness. The crystalline entity maintained a permanent presence in a specialized quantum environment within the facility where regular exchanges of scientific, cultural, and philosophical knowledge occurred. Earth had begun reaching out to the stars with new communication technology developed through human nascent cooperation. The messages carried subtle warnings to any listening civilizations. Humanity had faced extinction without firing a shot seen from conventional perspectives, and had prevailed through qualities no advanced simulation could have predicted. The Purity faction remained contained in their quantum bubble. Periodically, individual entities requested contact, showing the first signs of evolving beyond their rigid collective thinking. Chen had established strict protocols for these interactions, proceeding cautiously, but leaving open the possibility of rehabilitation and eventual reintegration with the nascent community. Most of humanity would never know the names of those who had saved them from silent conquest. The team members received anonymous medals in classified ceremonies, their contributions recorded only in the most secure archives, but they had fundamentally changed Earth's relationship with the cosmos. As Chen looked at holographic representations of distant star systems, where other silicon-based entities might evolve, she felt a sense of quiet pride. Humanity had not just survived first contact. We had grown from it, learning that our perceived weaknesses could become our greatest strengths when facing the unknown. The quantum defense grid pulsed quietly around the planet, a testament to the unexpected alliance between carbon and silicon consciousness, between emotion and logic, between human unpredictability and alien precision, a silent guardian against threats most would never comprehend. The war no one heard about had changed everything. And as humanity took its first tentative steps into a much larger and stranger universe than previously imagined, the lessons learned would shape our species for generations to come. Not conquest, not domination, but the unique human ability to find connection even across the vast gulfs of evolutionary difference.